I think I'm like her in the sense that we don't indulge in the gossip. We don't listen to what people say about us. You just have to turn a blind eye to it. People are going to talk, and you can't be hurt by that. You can't listen to that. And she's really striving. These days, I live my whole life. It's easier to fall into that, like talking about someone else and when you stick up for someone, you're going out on a limb when a whole group is making fun of someone. But I've really tried to have some honor in my life.
Big day. For those of you unfamiliar what a deposition is, this is the chance for Justin's side to question her under oath, to really get the facts from her. And she's got to sit there and answer everything. She can't just ignore it or say no. She's got to answer questions and she's got to tell the story. And will that story match up to her testimony later in court?
Blake Lively just walked into one of the most high-pressure rooms of her life. And it wasn't a film set. It was a deposition. But not just any deposition. Imagine stepping into a space where every word can be weaponized, every glance interpreted, and sitting across from you is Justin Baldoni, the man at the center of the legal nightmare you've been desperately trying to escape.
And I think what we need more of is compassion, understanding, and empathy. And I also believe it's important to, regardless of whether there is an oppressor or an oppressed, to acknowledge hurt where it exists and in whom it exists. And I think men are hurting overall. So I don't use the word toxic masculinity because I also think it's become enmeshed with identity politics.
The atmosphere, ice cold. The stakes, astronomical. According to insiders, this wasn't just a procedural Q&A, it was a Hollywood showdown. Lively didn't come alone either. She brought reinforcements, Ryan Reynolds, her sister Robin, and a staggering 8 lawyers. 8. If you're picturing a courtroom drama, you're not far off, but this wasn't in a court. Blake, flexing her A-list privileges, had the entire deposition moved to her attorney's offices on her turf in New York. Power move? Absolutely. But if she thought this would make things easier, the leaks suggest it was anything but. And the details that have trickled out so far, they paint a very different picture of Blake than the one we're used to seeing on screen.
The biggest being the fact that, according to TMZ and at various other outlets, Blake Lively has finally sat down for her deposition. And I'll be honest, it surprised me because I didn't think she was gonna. But she'd continue to find more excuses. The fact that she's now sat for a deposition.
Nothing against, like, I love a good hysterical female song, but not like hysterical in like a charged, great, empowered way. It's just like, you know what I mean? You know that sound
it's
that's
not
like
cheesy.
A little,
it's not cheesy.
And anyways, women are people of multitudes. And, I think that it was important to me that it didn't just feel like someone's interpretation of like male gaze. Like it really was, this is what we like, this is what we listen to, this is what makes us feel these vibes.
When Blake Lively arrived for her deposition, it was clear she wanted to make an entrance that said, "I'm in control." Witnesses describe her walking into the AXA building on 7th Avenue, flanked by her sister Robin and husband Ryan Reynolds, though they didn't enter the deposition room itself. Then came her legal entourage, 8 high-powered attorneys, enough to make even the boldest opponent nervous. And if the setting wasn't intimidating enough, the wardrobe added to the message. Gone were the playful floral dresses fans often associate with Blake. Instead, she wore black jeans, a black waistcoat, and a soft blue cardigan, understated but commanding, an outfit that quietly said she was ready for war, not a photo op. The entire deposition took place at the offices of her legal team, a luxury move Judge Lyman had granted. Think about that. She didn't have to show up at some sterile court building like everyone else. No, this was her ground, her rules. But here's the thing. When you walk into a room like that, even with an army behind you, there's no hiding from the truth. And based on what's leaked, that truth is coming for her. Now let's get to the part everyone's talking about, the leaks. We finally have a taste of what went down in that room, and it's messy. According to recently filed documents, during questioning by Justin Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, Blake admitted that the only smear campaign she personally knows about wasn't against her at all. No, she said the real smear campaign was Baldoni defending himself. Read that again. She's claiming that his legal team fighting back, presenting evidence and challenging her accusations, amounts to a smear campaign. If you're thinking that's a bold claim, you're right, but it doesn't stop there. This revelation wasn't whispered in a hallway or leaked from a friend of a friend. It's on the record in official filings, and it's a game changer. This paints her not as the victim in the narrative, but as someone reframing the very act of defense as an attack. It's a risky argument, one that could backfire spectacularly, because if Baldoni's team was simply responding to her claims, calling that a smear could sound like an attempt to silence any form of pushback. And that changes everything about how this case is perceived. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Blake's legal team isn't just fighting Justin Baldoni, they're going after his lawyer, Brian Friedman, in a move that feels more like a PR war than a legal one. They filed letters asking the judge to treat Friedman not as an attorney, but as a public relations agent, essentially arguing that his media appearances strip him of client-attorney privilege. Why? Because Friedman spoke to the press, specifically in interviews with big names like Megyn Kelly and TMZ. That's right, they're saying that by doing those interviews, Friedman was acting as a PR guy, not a lawyer, so his communications shouldn't be protected. It's a strategy that feels desperate and oddly personal. But here's the kicker. If that argument works, it opens the door for Blake's team to demand access to his emails, his calls, maybe even his strategy notes. It's a bold play, but is it smart? Because if this backfires, it won't just look like a legal tactic. It'll look like an all-out attempt to silence and discredit Baldoni's defense team. And in a courtroom drama already dripping with Hollywood theatrics, that's a dangerous look. If you thought things couldn't get worse for Blake, buckle up. In their scramble to justify why they needed to subpoena Rob Sullivan, the editor of It Ends With Us, Blake's legal team handed over text messages they probably shouldn't have. And these texts, they're dynamite for the other side. The messages show Sullivan and others on the production team openly questioning why Blake had so much control over intimate scenes, not just for herself, but for younger actors playing her character in flashbacks. One editor flat out says it's all about control. Ouch. The conversation reads like a group of professionals shaking their heads at a co-star who's overstepping. And here's the wild part. Blake's own lawyers voluntarily submitted these messages. You can almost hear Baldoni's team thanking them for the free evidence. Instead of proving their point, Blake's attorneys may have given Baldoni more ammunition to argue that she was overreaching on set, or worse, manipulating the production for personal gain. It's the kind of legal blunder you don't expect from a team this stacked. And yet here we are, watching Blake's case unravel one self-inflicted wound at a time. So what exactly do these texts suggest? That Blake Lively wasn't just starring in It Ends With Us, she may have been unofficially co-directing. According to the leaked messages, she had final approval over scenes involving her character, even in flashbacks where a younger actress played the role. Why? Allegedly because she rewrote parts of the nudity rider and didn't want her character depicted in certain ways. On one hand, you could argue this was Blake protecting her image, but on the other, it paints her as someone exerting outsized control over a film that wasn't hers to reshape. Editors were clearly frustrated, with one remarking that her influence boiled down to all about control. In the world of Hollywood gossip, that's not just a footnote, it's a headline. This isn't Blake as America's sweetheart. This is Blake as a behind-the-scenes power player, shaping the film to fit her own vision. And if that's true, what does it say about the integrity of the project? More importantly, what does it mean for her credibility in this legal battle? Because every new revelation chips away at the carefully crafted narrative she's been selling. While Blake battles on one front, Justin Baldoni has opened up another, this time against his own insurance company. That's right, Baldoni is suing the very company that's supposed to be covering his legal fees, accusing them of refusing to pay up. It's a classic David versus Goliath move, except this David has his own Goliath backing him. More on that in a minute. The insurance company claims their policy doesn't cover this particular legal mess, arguing the timeline of events means they're off the hook. Baldoni, he's calling their bluff. Filing a lawsuit of this scale sends a clear message. He's not backing down, and he's prepared to fight for every dime. Why does this matter? Because legal wars are expensive, and going after your insurer isn't just about the money, it's about strategy. If Baldoni wins, he not only secures the financial muscle to keep up this fight, but also sets a precedent that could shake up the industry. It's bold, it's risky, and it shows that while Blake's team might be playing PR games, Baldoni's focused on stacking his war chest for the long haul. And here's where the plot thickens. Justin Baldoni isn't fighting this battle alone. Enter Steve Sarowitz, a billionaire with a personal stake in the outcome. According to whispers in the industry, Sarowitz once vowed to spend whatever it takes, even upwards of $100 million, to take Blake down. Whether that's a figure of speech or a hard promise, it changes the dynamic completely. This isn't just a legal scuffle between two celebrities anymore. This is a proxy war fueled by big money, deep grudges, and reputations on the line. For Baldoni, it means financial security in a fight that could otherwise drain him. For Blake, it means she's not just up against her co-star, she's up against someone with nearly limitless resources and the motivation to use them. The quiet involvement of someone like Sarowitz raises the stakes sky high. If this case was already feeling like a Hollywood drama, this just turned it into a full-blown thriller. And with money like that backing Baldoni, the question isn't just whether Blake can win, it's whether she can even afford to keep playing the game. If you've been following this saga online, you've probably noticed something strange in the comments sections of articles covering the case. Suddenly, there's an overwhelming wave of pro-Blake commentary flooding trade magazines and entertainment blogs. Are her fans really rallying behind her? Or is this something more manufactured? Some insiders believe this is the work of PR bots, automated accounts designed to flood discussions with favorable takes, drowning out criticism and reshaping public perception. It wouldn't be the first time a celebrity under fire deployed such tactics. The idea is simple: create the illusion of widespread support, even when the reality is more complicated. But here's the problem: people are starting to notice. And when readers feel like they're being manipulated, it often backfires. If these are indeed bots, then Blake's team is fighting a war on two fronts: in court and in the comments. And while controlling the narrative online might work in the short term, the leaks and court documents are telling a different story, one that no amount of digital cheerleading can erase. So where does this leave us? Blake Lively, once the picture-perfect Hollywood star, now finds herself in a legal and PR quagmire, with leaks exposing her behind-the-scenes influence, lawyers making risky plays, and a billionaire-backed opponent ready to burn through mountains of cash to win. Every new filing adds another layer to this already tangled web, and the leaks from her deposition are just the beginning. What else did she admit behind closed doors? How much more evidence is Baldoni sitting on? And perhaps most importantly, can Blake actually come out of this with her reputation intact? This isn't just a case anymore. It's a saga, a power struggle, a fight where the stakes are personal, professional, and potentially career-defining. One thing's for sure, the next round of filings and leaks will be explosive. And when they drop, this story won't just dominate Hollywood gossip, it'll rewrite the narrative around one of its brightest stars. Buckle up, this ride is far from over.